T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
This is episode 35 of the show, and today we bring you meatless meat for carnivores, getting energy from where the sun don't shine, eyes in the back of your head, and whether or not humans should go to Mars. And what show is this? Why, it's Citizens of Tech. I am Ethan Banks at EC Banks, and with me is Eric Zutphin at Zutphin. Now, Eric, we're going to jump right into our first story here. You found non-meat meat, basically, and I just read this story, and I'm horrified and also intrigued.
Meat eaters, meet your non-meat meat.
Exactly.
So this actually came from NPR.org. It's not a new concept, but it's a new take on it. This is plant-based ground beef alternative, and I know you're just itching to hear about
this. Dude,
this.
I'm thinking veggie burgers, okay?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're not terrible things, but they are not a meat substitute.
No.
It's just something that, so if you're a vegetarian, you can go to the cookout and you enjoy your burger and no one's looking at you funny because you're the freak vegetarian
Let's face
at the
it,
cookout.
you pretend to enjoy your burger.
Exactly.
These are not Boca burgers.
Right.
This isn't just like mashed up soy protein. So this is being developed by a company called Impossible Foods, which was founded by a Stanford biochemist called Patrick Brown. And this isn't just a pseudo meat for vegetarians and vegans either. The target market is actually hardcore carnivores.
Okay, so it sounds like what they're trying to make here is a burger. I mean, you're going to fool me with it, basically. It's made of plants, but you're going to fool me with it. It's going to look like a real burger.
That's the idea. It's going to look like it, feel like it, taste like it.
Okay, tell me more, because I'm still not convinced.
So, we've sort of discussed a few times about the amount of water, electricity, and other natural resources required to meet the global demand for meat, right, with cows.
Raising cows is expensive business.
Tons of water required, tons of food, and the
acreage,
methane.
Right, cow flatulence is actually not just a joke, it's actually a thing.
Cow farts are a global epidemic, yeah.
Oh, it's so sad that that's a true thing. Anyway.
So anyway, this product, the goal of this product is to require far less resources, far fewer resources. I don't know. I'm a tech guy, not an English major. And the great thing about this is it could drastically reduce the time to table for this meat type product, and it could become price competitive in the very near future. Hopefully even becoming cheaper than the real deal.
Because it's going to be volume-based, and if they can make it at enough volume, then the price becomes economical.
Bingo. Yep. So that's great. If you can make lots of it and make it cheap, who cares if it doesn't taste good, right? So that's where the author of this article starts in on describing this. If the article is to be believed, it tastes incredible. Incredibly accurate. The author noted that it was a bit less flavorful than real beef, but if he hadn't known that it wasn't beef, he would have just thought, oh, it's a kind of bland burger.
Okay.
So slightly less beefy. And it looks pink and marbled when it's uncooked, so it looks like ground beef. It sizzles on the grill or the pan. It's juicy and has real meat flavor. And the secret to that flavor is a compound, heme or hemoglobin.
Oh, I was going to say, you said heme, and my brain went, hemoglobin,
Yeah.
like stuff that's in our blood.
So heme is an iron-containing molecule in the blood that carries oxygen. And legumes contain leg hemoglobin, which could have been used.
Legumes, beans, and so on.
Yeah, soybeans specifically.
Right.
But the problem with that is to extract it is expensive, it's time-consuming, and you're still basically unearthing carbon because you're, extracting these from the ground, and you got to do something with them.
So you're just replacing cow farts with, a different sort of
it's probably
process.
a little better, but the ultimate goal here is to be more sustainable. So
obviously they figured something out. How are they making heme?
Technology to the rescue. They actually took the gene that's responsible for producing heme from the soybean and added it to yeast. And now they can make vats of this stuff, this magical ingredient. And one vat is enough to make 20,000 quarter-pound or 110-ish gram patties.
Okay, so it's Franken soybean plus yeast.
Franken
yeast
Yeah.
makes heme, which gives me the flavor I need in my veggie burger so it doesn't suck.
Pretty much.
Go science!
And it even smells right. Yet more science coming. They actually use gas chromatography and mass spectrometry to actually take cooked meat gases and analyze them and isolate it down to these are the few dozen scents that are actually compose a caramelized grilled meat. You know, it's a
Why
combination.
does this smell so amazing?
Right, exactly.
Yes,
And so they were
okay.
able to replicate that, and it smells like beef cooking on the grill, just like you would expect from a real burger.
You know what's funny? My mouth is watering right now as like I could really go for a burger. And I just had dinner like an hour ago.
I totally want to try this thing. Apparently,
Is it okay? So we're saving the planet with this thing. Is it also healthier for me?
Yeah, it is. Well, purportedly, anyhow. It has more protein than 80% lean beef.
I never would have guessed that.
Right.
That's counterintuitive because it's plant matter. I'm
Yeah.
not going to get more protein out of it. So,
It
but
has-
but apparently I do.
Right. It has
Interesting.
less fat, and the fat that it does have is mostly coconut oil, so it's monounsaturated.
You ever cook with coconut oil?
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's better for you than saturated fats, right? Fewer calories and no cholesterol. So apparently it kind of has it all beat. I don't know. And the really
okay.
big thing here.
Okay,
Go ahead.
This is interesting. To now they're making a ground beef style product you can make a
Correct.
burger out of. I mean, it's going to be different from a like steak tip, something that's got the full muscle there. So I mean, they're not replicating that.
No.
Okay,
At least not at this point.
yeah.
I'm sure it's easier to replicate ground beef than, full-on steak at this point.
So more
until
protein,
we're 3D printing virtual steaks, right?
more protein, less fat, fewer calories, no cholesterol. Okay, and then no animals were hurt.
No animals.
Just the Frankenbean.
Yeah. The Frankenbean yeast. Yeah. So those with religious and or ethical objections can fully enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, I distinctly remember a gentleman that I used to work with who was Hindu, and he loved beef, but he couldn't eat it.
Right, for on religious grounds.
He's like, right.
This is something
He's
he
like,
could enjoy.
I really wish I could have a hamburger.
Yeah.
And so this would actually meet this.
So what was the name of the company again?
So it's Impossible Foods, and they're not the only game in town. There are other people in the market that are doing this. Beyond Burger is one from another company that Brown, the founder of Impossible Foods, says that thing's a home run, and he sees plenty of room in the market for both of them and everyone else that's out there, because no one can produce enough to meet the global demand yet. So,
Well, okay, so there's production challenges, and then there'll be, who makes the best non-beef beef burger?
Right.
We got at least two, Beyond Burger and now Impossible Foods making burgers. So there's competition in the market. That's not a bad thing. It's interesting to me, very interesting that it's sustainable. I never would have guessed that. Well, we can make it, and it took several thousand of whatever to make this one thing that is so precious. And no, they're talking about mass production.
yeah.
So that is coming to a supermarket near us eventually.
Yeah, that's the idea. So Beyond Meats is the name of the other company. Their Beyond Burger is targeted at supermarkets right now in the San Francisco area and all this. And Impossible Foods is actually going to start by targeting restaurant chains. And then eventually, as they ramp up supply, getting into supermarkets.
Okay, moving on to, if you got an old car, it does not have a backup camera. Okay, old car, I don't know how you define old, but I have a 2004 Forester, no backup camera. I have a 2012 Outback, no backup camera.
Yep.
So, a lot of cars don't have them. Wouldn't it be nice if you could? And now the people from that had left, there are some people that have left Apple to form a company called Pearl Auto. So these are Apple engineers and so on who apparently still have a good relationship with Apple, have started Pearl Auto, and their first product is going to be coming to market very soon. You can pre-order it now. It is a product called Rear Vision. And they claim on their website that it is the backup camera redefined. Ooh, yeah.
Why does it need to be redefined? It's a camera that lets me see stuff so I don't back into it.
I know.
Like, what?
Don't redefine it. We redefined it. Now it looks at the sky. Come on.
Now it's 40% less useful.
Yeah. So we redefined
okay. How are they redefining? What are we doing?
So what I don't know that it's really a redefinition, right? But it is a pretty slick product.
Okay.
I don't know. Complicated maybe is it, but it's well thought out. Anyway, let's walk through this thing, how it works. First of all, it's intended to go on your car that does not have a backup camera. So it's a retrofit, right? You got an older car, you want to have a backup camera like your fancy new car does, great. You're in their crosshairs. You're the one they're trying to sell this thing to. So it mounts the license plate. There's a bracket that goes through the screw holes, and then you mount your license plate in there. And then you've got the camera itself is in this rectangular assembly that goes around the license plate and mounts to that bracket that you installed with the license plate and then mount it to the car. So there's a few steps there to make all that happen. There's several moving pieces, but you get it mounted, and they show you pictures on the website. It's not rocket science. You can get this done with a screwdriver and a little secure to affix the camera assembly to the bracket. There's a little security screw with a tip that they provide.
Gotcha.
To a theft deterrent, because thieves
Everyone's
would never
going to be
have
stealing that backup camera.
Well,
the hot item.
we'll talk about that, but probably not. Anyway, so what's in this thing? What are you getting? What have you just mounted in this rectangular form factor to your license plate? Well, you got two cameras. There's a wide angle and a typical view. Both of which are HD. If you look at the demos, that's what you think you're getting. I mean, the notes got a little confusing because the notes say, well, one of the cameras is optimized for daytime and the other is infrared, optimized for nighttime. Another interesting part here is of this assembly, there is a solar charger.
Sold.
So,
I'll buy it. No. You had me at solar.
You had me at solar. There's two lenses in the top, right? And then there's at the top part of the license plate. Then on the bottom part of your license plate is this little solar panel that keeps that part of the assembly charged.
Okay.
But there's no wires for this thing. This whole thing is wireless. And thus, that's what the solar bit is all about. It keeps that part that's mounted to the license plate charged up. So you don't have to be putting batteries in it or any of that nonsense.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay. How do I get the visuals from the camera into the front of the car so that I can see them? That's the next question. There's a couple of pieces to that. One is your phone. The other is this module that plugs into the OBD2 sensor in your car. So under the dash, you've got this OBD2 plug that you can get data from the car, and they're used for diagnostics. There's a lot of different things you can plug into that OBD2 and pull data out of your car, essentially. And there's power there.
And that's how this thing knows that you've put it into reverse so it turns on?
So
Presumably?
that is the nexus for all of this stuff.
Okay.
So you plug the sensor in, and then the last into the OBD2 plug that's under your dash somewhere, and then the last piece is an app that runs on your phone, either Android or iPhone. You sync all these guys up. So now you've got the camera relaying data to the sensor that's plugged into the OBD2, which is relaying data up to the app that's in the phone, including the video streams. This is how I'm understanding it anyway from the website. If I'm wrong, it's because the website was really pretty vague on some of these details. But the thing that plugs into the OBD sensor is also doing some compute offload kind of work. It's figuring out proximity. It's going to sound warnings and alerts, so it's got a tone in there. So it's a little mini computer that's processing some of the video signals, and then again relaying them up to your phone with the app. So the app is showing you two different views. If you've got it in portrait mode, there's a top screen and a bottom screen. The top screen is more focused. The bottom screen is more wide view.
Yep.
And the wide angle view is quite wide, and they show this in their demo video.
Does it have like the guidelines and the measurements on it, or did it?
Not that I saw in any of the
some
demos.
cars out there have
but
that. Like,
I don't see any reason why they couldn't, since there is a proximity sensor of some kind. There is also, again, the wide angle is really wide, and so they're really showing off. If you're trying to back out of your driveway and you've got a big, a hedge or something there, because we're in Britain now, you've got a hedge right there that's blocking your view. You can't see down the street to the car that's coming out or the kid on the bicycle, because there's always a kid on a bicycle. but the camera can see it, and it'll sound a tone, and whoa, I know I have to stop. Okay, so it's got that sort of technology in it as well. And then there's the last piece of this puzzle. If you're thinking, how am I going to see this on my phone? It comes with a little vent-mounted magnetic mount for your phone. So you stick it on your vent, and now you can magnet mount your phone to this thing and see it. Not CarPlay, not Android Auto ready yet, but there is hope that will happen. So if you've got a CarPlay or Android Auto head unit, that you would integrate your backup camera right in there, which is exactly what you want. You don't really want to have to be looking at your phone for this, honestly.
Exactly.
Theft deterrent. We're talking about that security screw that mounts the whole thing to the brackets and stuff. So it's still, someone could steal it pretty easily from that standpoint. But if your car is locked, the camera assembly that's hanging off the back of your car on the license plate holder is useless without the bit that plugs into your OBD2 sensor. Plus, when it's paired, it doesn't pair with anything else once it's been paired. Apparently, there's a process to unpair it if you needed to go elsewhere.
Sure.
So it's kind of useless technology to someone if they were to steal it. If someone stole it, they really wouldn't know what they were getting and wouldn't get a lot of value out of it.
Yeah. Theft discussion aside, how much is this thing going to set us back if we wanted this?
Well, Eric, you can have your very own Pearl Auto rear vision for the low price of $500. Pre-order not available till September. You buying?
Nope. $500.
So here's what's funny. In the demo video, the cars they show having had this retrofit done are a very late model BMW, a very late model Subaru Outback, and a pretty late model looking truck as well, like a high-end Silverado, quad cab loaded. So the people they're going after are just loaded, and I'm thinking, all those cars probably have rear view camera anyway. I know the late model Outback does.
I gotta think, for $500, you could probably get a head unit that'll do this.
Well, that's another thing, because you totally can. So I've actually been looking at head units for my Forester as a retrofit. Now, I'd have to do it wired. There'd have to be some work there. But it's easy to buy. A Pioneer makes them. Kenwood makes them, where there's a rear camera jack in the back of the head unit. And if you're willing to do the drilling and you're willing to run the cable, you too can have your very own rear view camera built into the head unit, and you're into that kind of money. Plus, you got a full stereo and everything else that comes with a magical new head unit put in your car.
Yeah.
So the sell to me here is ease of installation. It is pretty slick. It's a lifestyle piece, if you like things that, work with your phone and it's all slick and you can show off to your friends, this probably works well for you if you're in that mindset. And other than that, $500 is like $350 too much.
Yeah, that's about what I was thinking. $350 too expensive.
Ugh.
Yeah. If it was $2 bills, I that would be in the realm of feasibility, but
Citizens of Tech bringing you first world problems, baby.
This amazing wireless gadget is too expensive.
Exactly. Oh, Eric, you found a piece about renewable energy, I guess, the big deal about wind and solar and the fact that it could never meet peak load because solar is like sun in the day, and how do you have solar power at night and so on?
Because the sun only shines during the daytime.
Turns out.
Right. Yeah. If we only had known, we wouldn't have wasted all this time and energy on solar. Okay, yeah. So this is actually from the Washington Post. Coal, gas, and nuclear are the pervasive and reliable power sources for most of the United States. There are hydro dams out there
We burn things, boil water, turn a turbine.
Yeah.
More or less. That's not how nukes work, but more or less.
Yeah, I mean, it's their steam.
Yeah.
Right? So wind and solar are catching up, but in the U.S., there's this persistent idea that those renewable sources, wind and solar and hydro even, can't meet more than 15 to 20% of the grid's demand. And the Washington Post article actually argues that this isn't strictly true. There are countries where, Portugal, for instance, they ran for several days, I think 4 days, something like that, on 100% wind, solar, and hydropower. Now,
wind, solar, and hydro. Okay, so to me there, the key is hydro. Well, okay, Portugal, coastal nation. I'd be interested to know how much wind they get from coastal plants. But hydro is the thing that, I mean, we've got hydroelectric dams around here.
Yep.
There's one town over from us, over in Franklin, that
Yep.
last I knew was still producing electricity.
Yep.
And so that's, anyway, interesting.
Yeah, and Portugal is obviously a very different use case than the U.S. They have different power demands and different infrastructure setup and all this. But Germany has made incredible market penetration in renewables as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, can the U.S. really do that too? And regionally, we've sort of seen, Texas has wind farms cropping up all over, and they've hit 45% of their peak demand from wind alone recently. So it's becoming more realistic. But really what we're looking at is, like you said, hydro is sort of the missing link that most people don't think about because we're already doing it in some instances. You've got
A lot of places. We get a lot of it piped down in this area from Quebec.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so hydro can bridge the gap that solar and wind have. And it's not a ubiquitous thing, right? There aren't hydropower plants all over the place, but they're always producing electricity.
Well, the issue being, right, sun is very peaky, and you have bright sun days and shallow sun days, and of course night you're not producing anything. You can't count on the wind blowing. And so the whole big idea here is that 15 to 20% you quoted in the beginning, that's been the number that's been thrown around saying, well, we'll never do better than 15 to 20. We're always going to have to burn things. And then, right, you say hydro steps in, and we were like, oh, well, duh, we've been doing that for a long time. We're really good at that. The rivers run.
Always.
Yeah.
Unless you're in California.
And we can control that. We can modulate that.
Right.
So with damming and so on.
Yep. So it's always going to be turning that, unless the river is dammed or, diverted or whatever.
So now it becomes a load problem. How do we deal with peak loads during the day and make sure we're producing enough electricity to meet? But this is almost like an IT problem. How do I have enough RAM in the server, enough CPU, enough network capacity to
run all
these
these VMs? And so it really is sort of that sort of a problem, and it's about controlling demand versus the given supply. And so a process that's being explored is demand response, which is using grid interactive electronics. Like water heaters and electric cars, they're both cited as good candidates for this. And it makes sense, right?
Meaning they talk to the grid?
They talk back to the grid, and the grid controls them to an extent.
Okay. So electric car, you need so many hours of charge. You don't have to charge right now, though. You're going to wait. Bob's car is charging next door. Then I'm going to ramp you up and let the grid kind of figure out how to smooth out the peaks.
Right. So maybe it's in 15-minute chunks, and, Ethan's car charges for 15 minutes, and then Bob's car needs to charge for 15 minutes. So Ethan stops, Bob's charges, and then Tim down the streets needs to, so it distributes the load evenly. So it's not everyone's charging at the same time, and now we need megawatts of extra power, and then all of a sudden demand drops off and nothing.
I'm going to make sure I never buy an intelligent air conditioner. I don't want the grid telling my air conditioner, yeah, he can sweat it out.
Leave it on all the time. So my local utility is actually starting to experiment with this concept. We got a letter in the mail the other day, a few weeks back actually, with them pitching this intelligent program to us. And there were 3 possible selections. One was, pound sand, I'll manage my own demand, basically. The other was
Luddite.
We'll send you notifications when we expect times of high demand, and if you use less electricity during that time and use more of it during non-peak, you get the lower rates and all this.
We give you a hug in the form of a lower bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the third one was actually them controlling the water heater and all this remotely. So if demand is high, then, they're going to kick my water heater off for 20 minutes at a time or whatever to even out the load versus the supply.
Yeah, but you have to have the right sort of, was there like a module they were saying, buy this module and now you can talk to the grid, something like that?
Yeah, so they have been installing these smart meters, first of all, that allow us to hit a web portal, see our real-time usage, our daily usage, and all that. And then there is... I opted for choice number 2. Notify me and I'll take care of it. Because as cool as the automated system sounds, it's one more device that starts yielding control, and I'm not good with that. I'm more than happy to help you balance the load, but let me do it on my own, basically.
Trust Eric to do the right thing.
I'll always do the right thing, Ethan. I'm not like the others.
No, you're not.
As much as I like to imagine having my own solar array, we've talked about this in the past, that provides all of my electricity. And, if it's not producing a lot that day, I guess, it's time for me to scale back for the day and sort of live with that ebb and flow. It's just not feasible, at least for a few years, I don't think. And so I guess the question is this a more realistic way to achieve better renewable energy market penetration? Distribute it, leave it up to the electric utility provider to sort out, okay, who gets what electricity when.
Well, it kind of lends some more credence to the smart grid technology we keep hearing so much about that sounds like hype. It's kind of starting to put some useful teeth into it, what the use case is and why we would care beyond simply remote metering. Now you've got some software behind that can do data analysis and begin to manage the grid intelligently. And also Internet of Things. So there's a cross-section there too, I think, where you can begin managing energy demand with the more of your devices that are connected to the network, to the Internet, can be managed in an intelligent way, and we can manage power consumption. Geez, another first world problem, though, I'll tell you what. We have a lot of things that we need to have power for. We don't like to be uncomfortable or get off our butts or anything.
And I want to turn the heat on from my phone.
I want my robot butler to bring me ice cream.
But the electric company shut off the freezer.
I hate that. Eric, another question for you. Should humans go to Mars? What do you think? I just wanted, before we even talk about all the stuff that I've dug up on this, what do you think about this?
Yes.
Why?
Because.
So, and okay, and if that's all your answer is, you're not far off from a lot of people. It's like, why should we go to Mars? Because it's freaking cool.
Yeah.
Are you serious, people on Mars? Yeah.
Why
if
did
you
we
have to ask why? You don't even get it.
Why did we go to the moon?
Right. Well, right. So I found this article in Ars Technica that basically asked the question, should humans go to Mars, or should we just be sending smarter robots to do the exploration and the science for us? It's cheaper, the less risk to human life, and so on and so on. That was kind of the thrust of the article. And I started really pondering this. It's like, why do we want to go to Mars? Now, I grew up reading a lot of sci-fi, including Ray Bradbury, The Martian Chronicles, for example. There's any number of sci-fi movies I've seen over the years that have a setting on Mars or something to do with Mars. Most recently, The Martian, like you mentioned last week, that you saw. And then there's something Schwarzenegger was in that was set on Mars. I don't remember what it was. It was Total Recall, maybe. There's a setting there, because I remember it very vividly. He's outside the colony and losing atmosphere, and his eyes are bugging out of his head because of the pressure and the problem, because someone opens his helmet or something. Anyway, I'm really going far afield here. If you take it seriously and we look at where we are today as humanity, why would we go to Mars? In the fours, if you go to citizenoftech.com and look at the show notes here for show 35, I picked out 5 different articles and just picked bits and pieces of it to start thinking through this thing, why we should go. One is just like you said, Eric. It's basically fulfillment of a fantasy. It's like, should we go to Mars? Yes. Why would we not? Why are we having this conversation? Another is just human curiosity. We're doing stupid things all the time that put us in danger. Like, I read a blog about people at the South Pole. I read something where there's a dude walking from his sleeping quarters to where he works a half a kilometer away, and it's 90 below zero, and how he has to dress just to make it that far without dying.
Yeah. It's not that difficult, not that different from Mars as it is.
So why do we do this? Because we're curious. We want to find things out. There's science to be done. We're trying to learn and understand and know, and wouldn't Mars be an evolution of that? Of course it would, And then just simply progress. Imagine, like going to the moon, right, was an amazing technological achievement, especially if you consider the technology of the time and the computers of the time. Wow. Fast forward that to going to Mars. What an accomplishment if we could actually pull this off.
Leaps and bounds in technological advancements to make it feasible.
So a little bit more of a dark reason is, how long is Earth going to support humans? You look at climate change, and we can argue all day about how much impact mankind is having on that and how reversible it is or is not. But if the trends keep going like they're going, if we assume it's not reversible and it's not all within our control to do something with, which taking ice cores from Antarctica, looking at the fossil record and different layers we have on the Earth's surface, it kind of looks like there's been a lot of ice ages and various other things that didn't have anything to do with men, and so maybe something could happen on the Earth and just wipe us out beyond our control. Does that make the case then that we should be looking for ways not only to survive in an Earth that's going to become much less hospitable to us than it is now, but to spread out, find some other place to go, like a lunar colony, like a Martian colony? Is that a good case here? Maybe it is. Now, we've proven that there's water on Mars under the surface. We figured that out. We suspected it for a long time. That's been proven. So that's kind of encouraging. It's like, oh, well, there's water there. That's kind of a massive plus because carrying it sucks. That's a lot of Gatorade bottles. Yeah. Another thing, because not the moon. Okay, well, you can just go to the moon. It's so much closer. No, you don't want to go live on the moon. The moon has no atmosphere at all. At least Mars has some atmosphere. Wild temperature fluctuations on the moon. It's going to either bake you or freeze you.
300-degree difference. Yeah.
No protection from solar radiation at all because, again, no atmosphere. That's a problem.
No magnetosphere.
Right. And then the moon dust. One of the articles I read describes moon dust as tiny shards of glass. And it would just get into everything, this very fine, sharp dust.
Yeah.
And it makes the moon so incredibly inhospitable as to just being like, yes, we could probably pull it off, but man, what a miserable place to try to exist. So, so Mars is kind of better than the moon for those reasons. We got at least a little atmosphere, the temperature's somewhat moderated, and et cetera. On Mars, in fact, the temperature at the equator can get as high as 70 degrees Fahrenheit during midday.
Huh.
So that's, not Saudi Arabia, but it's warm, Now, it didn't say that it's a pleasant ambient temperature that lasts for a long time and you can walk around in your shorts.
It's a peak.
But, right, there's a peak there.
And let's face it, you're never going to be in a, out in your trunks and all that on Mars anyway.
And then one final reason I can think of that's kind of in Mars' favor, maybe people will stop emailing me. Because there's some internet delay that's just really, sorry, on Mars. So I wouldn't even email me.
When do we leave?
Right. Okay. But against going to Mars.
And there's plenty.
Against. There's a really good chance you're going to die on your way to get there.
I mean, everyone dies.
I don't know about a really good chance. I mean, but
it's a statistical probability.
It's tough. It's tough. You're going a long way, which is, again, another piece of this puzzle here. Against. It is far. On average, the Earth and Mars are about 225 kilometers apart. Now, if
225 million kilometers.
Right. Thank you. 225 million kilometers apart. Now, that's all depends on their orbits and stuff. And when the Earth and Mars are orbiting in such a way that they are at their closest, you're doing more like 56 million kilometers, which was where it had ever made its closest approach back in 2003.
And it's going to be a dog's age until that happens again, I presume.
And it's 1.6 years.
Okay.
Now, it's not 1.6 years. It'll be 56 million kilometers exactly, but that's when that's the period of the closest times that Earth and Mars are
65
close in their
million.
orbits. Yes.
Yeah, whatever.
Even then, you're still ending up traveling somewhat further than that because, in fact, it takes so long to travel that distance that you have to aim for where Mars is going to be. So you take off. It's not like, oh, hey, you're right there, dude. You're only like 55 million kilometers. I'm getting in the car now. I'll be there in a minute.
No, you moved 2 million kilometers. What?
Exactly. So you have to do the math to figure out if we launch at this speed, we're going to get there. And so there's this whole. It's a big math problem, and so you end up traveling more. In fact, another issue here is if you think about this, we are terrible at efficient propulsion systems. You got to get a payload off the Earth's surface, which is an incredible amount of fuel and a great big vehicle to deliver that rocket blast to the ground. We suck at this. We got to get that into Earth orbit, and then we got to fire up the rockets to get the thing traveling through space. And all we know how to do is burn things.
Yep.
Again, we're terrible at this, and we have to have a vehicle big enough to have a bunch of people and their stuff, and their scientific instruments and all the rest to get all the way to Mars. This is, again, we are not good at this.
And we need to do it without it blowing up.
Yes, exactly. It's something we've been good at historically.
Historically, yes.
Okay, so all of that, the trip is going to be 6 or 7 months probably, something along those lines. It really depends. There's in those links, if you dig through, you will find charts that show exploration vehicles that we've sent out and how long it has taken them to get to Mars over time. And it's anywhere, it's in the low to mid 200-day range, typically is what they are. And again, as folks have been planning a manned mission to Mars, they've said, yeah, we're estimating 6 to 7 months, on the whole. Okay. But when we get there, now what? It's not like, oh, Mars is beautiful. There's pools and palm trees. No, it is not a hospitable place for human life. I mean, it's not no atmosphere, but it's very little atmosphere, about 100 times thinner than that of Earth. And it's made mostly of carbon dioxide with just a smidge of nitrogen. So it's very thin, and you can't breathe it. Yay.
But other than that, it's great.
So it is also the ground in some places. Apparently, we've detected a salt compound called perchlorate. And the article mentioned that the perchlorate is 3 to 4 times more, in the ground than a area on the Earth with 3 to 4 times less would be still considered a Superfund site. Basically an EPA cleanup site because it's toxic to humans.
Wow.
We're talking 3 to 4 times greater concentration of this perchlorate on Mars, meaning we got to deal with that. It's not like we can't decontaminate. We can, but it's one more thing to deal with when you get to Mars.
Yep.
And over the whole, I mean, you just think about the money. Just astonishing amount of money to make all of this happen.
Just
so
the food and water.
There's supplies, right, to get there. And it's not like when you get there, it's like, yay, we're planting crops and everything's cool. You still got to have supplies if you're going to hang out and be there. So either someone's got to be sending you supplies along the way, kind of like feeding the front line of an army, or you got to be supplying things yourself. And there is, of course, plans. Yes, well, obviously we'd want the colony to be self-sufficient eventually, but that's not going to happen day one or month one or year one. It's going to take a long time to get to that point. Arable soil, plants, and all the rest.
Great new movie idea.
Mm-hmm.
Biodome 3.
Oh, yes. The Martian experiment. So, dude, should we go to Mars? It's like, it would be amazing. And I still can't come up with a great reason why we should. I can find more use for things like mining asteroids, to bring down. We should be
searching
building,
for Earth-like planets.
We got to also start building things in space.
Yeah.
We can't. We got to be building vehicles that can travel through space in space. We can't keep building these things on the ground and then go, wow, it's really heavy. We
Strap
need to
a
get it.
big rocket to it.
We got to stop with that nonsense. And
we need a space elevator or something of the kind.
All of that stuff's going to take decades to get us to the point where we can actually begin now building things in space. To me, that is the logical next step. An orbiting space station we'll figure out a lot of things there that I think advance us to another lunar experiment or Mars.
It's probably much more practical to think in that vein.
Yeah. But no one's talking about that in any of the articles I read at all.
Well,
so I don't know.
We choose to go to Mars in this decade.
Content you like, Eric?
Yeah, PBS Space Time. It's a YouTube channel that PBS puts out, and this deals with everything from the history of the Planck constant to why the universe, quote unquote, needs dark energy to curved space-time in general relativity, and on and on. Any nerdy astrophysics type subject that you can probably think of, they have come up with a video to not only explain it, but to even explain it, if you're familiar with the expression, explain like I'm a 5-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Explain like I'm 5.
Yeah.
Right, on Reddit.
Yep. And so they really break it down. It's presented very well. And I just sat there and sort of binge watched a bunch of these things the other night, and should have been sleeping, but was watching these instead.
So the universe needs dark energy. That's one of the topics there.
Yeah.
It needs dark energy because without it, we don't have a balance for the good energy, right?
The light side and the dark side, right.
So without that, there's no Darth Vader, there's
always
no
a
Death
master
Star,
and an apprentice.
and
Yeah.
there's a lot of movies I'm not seeing without that dark matter. So that was pretty much that was it, right?
That was
what they
it.
said?
I mean, yeah. 15-second
Nailed
video.
it.
That's all that one is.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
I am a scientist. I totally am.
So anyway, check out the PBS Spacetime channel on YouTube. There's a link to it in the show notes.
Eric, did you learn anything today?
I did learn something today. I learned that the movie Apollo 13 was a terrible, terrible piece of Hollywood tripe.
No, it wasn't. Actually, I saw that movie. Are you being sarcastic or are you serious?
I am, but this is based on information that Ron Howard stated. After the first test preview of the film, one of the comment cards from someone who saw the preview expressed total disdain for it. The audience member had written that it was, quote, typical Hollywood ending, and that the crew would never have really survived.
Obviously ignorant of history. All right.
Touch. Yeah. Did you learn anything?
I did. I learned a new word. The word is regolith. So I'm going to read the quote from Wikipedia. Regolith is a layer of loose, heterogeneous superficial material covering solid rock. It includes dust, soil, broken rock, and other related materials and is present on the Earth, the Moon, Mars, some asteroids, and other terrestrial planets and moons. And that came up as I was reading about the difficulty of surviving as a human on the Moon and on Mars because of the what the regolith is made up of. The regolith on the Moon, the regolith on Mars. That's where that tiny shards of glass comment came from, was moon regolith.
Tiny shards of glass. That is a terrifying string of words.
It is indeed. And with that, we come in for a landing ourselves on this, the latest episode of Citizens of Tech. We want to hear from you, by the way. You can talk to us. There are ways, and I don't just mean crappy email. Are you ready to sink your teeth into meatless meat, or do you have some juicy bit of info to share with your fellow citizens? Do you want to tell us a Today I Learned? We would love to hear about your Today I Learns. Well, you can tweet at us, yes, and you can text, yes, and leave a voicemail, at, get this, there's a phone number here. There's an actual phone. This is a Google Voice number, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the Google Voice, 805-380-TECH. 805-380-TECH. Use your words and talk to us. We would appreciate that, and we'll incorporate them into the show at a future date. And yeah, if you can be all Luddite and go like email or Facebook or, some other horrible impersonal method of contacting us as well. And please, don't forget to subscribe to the show, and we would love a review on iTunes if you are so inclined. Thank you very much, and until next week.
Take care.